Welcome to the Deep Dive. Now, if you're an EFL teacher or maybe thinking about becoming one, you definitely know the feeling. That constant search for, well, those really good teaching ideas. The kind that are, easy to use but actually make a big difference in your classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. We know how much effort you put in. And that's why this deep dive, well, we've really designed it with you in mind. Our mission is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We want to cut through all the noise and just pull out 3 really practical, effective techniques. One for vocabulary, one for pronunciation, and one for fluency. Things you can genuinely use, like tomorrow.
Exactly. And we've made sure this chat is supportive and clear. We'll keep the pace measured, make sure these ideas are easy to follow and use, no matter how long you've been teaching. So let's jump straight in. First up, vocabulary, getting those words to stick.
Vocabulary, right? It's so fundamental. But it's easy for us as teachers to kind of fall into the same old patterns, isn't it? Our sources pointed out that when we keep students cycling in the same old scheme, maybe just using definition lists over and over, well, engagement just drops off.
Oh, yeah, that repetitive list thing. I remember reading something that called it like throwing sand to the beach. It just doesn't stick, does it? Because there's no real context, no meaning attached. We've got to move past just memorizing.
Exactly. The solution really boils down to teaching vocabulary, not just in context, but through action. And a really effective way to think about this is using those higher order thinking verbs, like you find in Bloom's Taxonomy, the revised one. It gives us a kind of roadmap to guide students beyond just remembering and understanding towards actually doing something with the language.
Okay, hang on. Bloom's Taxonomy. Let's unpack that a bit because that sounds like where the real practical shift happens. If we're moving past just knowing the definition or using it in a basic sentence, what do those higher levels actually look like in class?
All right, good question. The real magic for making words stick happens in those top levels, applying, analyzing, and creating. When students have to actively use the word to do something, it becomes personal. It means something to them. There's this great martial arts analogy in one of the sources. You wouldn't teach someone to spar that's like creating on their very first day, would you? They need to get the basic stance, the movements down first. That's your remembering and understanding.
Okay, yeah, that martial arts idea makes a lot of sense because if you do jump straight from the basics to sparring, you risk, what was it the source called it? Over-challenging. And then the student just gets frustrated. They're doing the thing, but they don't really get why or how.
Precisely. You've got to match the activity to where they are. But once they are ready, that's when you bring in those verbs like apply and create. You push them a bit.
Okay, give us a really concrete example. Let's say I'm teaching some tricky family words like sister-in-law or maybe second cousin. How would I use create?
Okay, so instead of just a matching quiz, you could use the verb create. Maybe ask students to sketch their own family tree, actually labeling it with the new words. And then maybe present it to a partner or a small group. Or if you want something more dynamic, have them act out a little family scene where they have to decide who plays which role. Suddenly, they have to use the word right then and there in a way that means something to them.
I really like that. It forces that active use. What about going even higher, like using analyze or debate?
Yeah, definitely. You could use vocabulary around, say, sports. Words like bike riding, soccer, maybe marathon. Then you pose a statement and ask them to argue for or against it, or debate it. Something like, bike riding is more dangerous than soccer. To build their argument, they have to use that specific sports vocabulary in a meaningful, analytical way. It works really well.
Got it. So technique number 1, use those action verbs. Create, apply, analyze to get students using vocabulary in context. That's super helpful.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. If vocabulary is about what they say, our next technique is really about how well they're understood. Let's talk pronunciation.
Pronunciation. And this is where, honestly, the stats were kind of shocking to me. We often think, oh, I'll skip the pronunciation drill, need more time for grammar, right? But one study looked at communication breakdowns, actual moments of confusion, and found pronunciation was the #1 culprit. It caused, 27 out of 40 breakdowns? That's way more than grammar mistakes or just not knowing a word.
27 out of 40. Yeah, that figure really stops you in your tracks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes a strong case for not skipping sound work. And the goal here isn't about sounding native. It's about being clearly understood. It's about confidence and successful communication.
So if it's that important, why do we often push it aside when we're short on time?
Well, I think it's often because the way we try to teach it isn't always that effective. Think about sound students mix up like, this and these. What do we usually do? We make them repeat the whole word. Say this 10 times. But that often doesn't work because the student genuinely can't hear that subtle difference between the vowel sounds yet. You know, the tone and the ICs. They haven't trained their ear.
Okay, great. So let's slow down here. For teachers who maybe haven't looked at phonemic symbols since their training days, what's the simple action step? How do we isolate sounds easily?
The key technique is exactly that. Isolate the sound. You can write the phonemic symbols on the board, and as they're easy enough to find online. That visual helps. But even simpler, just practice the sounds on their own first. Forget the word for a moment.
Could you model that for us? Like the difference between the sound in seat? What's the practical difference they need to grasp?
Sure. So the S sound, like in sit, it's short, it's quite relaxed, your mouth is just slightly open. Try saying I. That's close. Then the S's sound in seat, that's longer, and your mouth is more closed, kind of tense, spread wide, like you're smiling, like saying E.
Yeah.
You practice just those sounds, I versus E, until they can hear it, maybe even feel the difference in their mouth. Then you put it back in the word, sit versus seat.
Oh, okay. That makes so much more sense than just repeating the whole word where the problem sound gets kind of lost.
Exactly. And another really quick trick, especially for consonants, involves using physical cues. Think about voiced versus voiceless sounds like P and B. Have your students put their fingers right here on their throat. When they make the P sound, like in pen, nothing, no vibration. But when they make the B sound book, they feel a buzz, a vibration. That little physical check, it's immediate feedback for them.
That's brilliant, simple and effective. But okay, the time issue. Teachers are always worried about time. We can't spend ages on every sound every day, right?
No, definitely not. And you shouldn't have to. Here's a great little tip we found. Let's call it the 30-second activity. Just dedicate literally 30 seconds, maybe a minute max, in every lesson to focus on one sound or maybe one stress pattern. Like take a few multi-syllable words. Chocolate, vegetable, comfortable. Say them 5 times, really exaggerating the stress syllable.
Yeah.
CHO, collate. VGE table. That tiny bit of consistent practice, it adds up incredibly quickly over weeks and months.
That daily, super quick focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how that would build up. Fantastic tip. Okay, let's move to our third technique then. Fluency. Tying it all together with rhythm.
Right, fluency. And often the biggest hurdle isn't really the vocabulary itself. It's that kind of flat robotic way students sometimes speak when they're trying to go faster. And it actually makes them harder to understand. And it sounds like it takes a lot of effort, drains their energy.
And this is where it gets really interesting because English rhythm isn't about giving equal time to every syllable, is it? It's stress timed. The rhythm comes from emphasizing important words.
Exactly right. We need to teach students to stress the content words. Those are the key meaning carriers. Your nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs. And just as importantly, we need to teach them to reduce the function words. Things like prepositions, articles, auxiliary verbs. They're the grammatical glue, but low on meaning.
So in the classroom, the practical step here must be lots of modeling from the teacher, right? Really exaggerating that stress, making the stress part longer, maybe a bit higher in pitch, louder.
Yes, exaggeration is key. Model it multiple times. And when you teach reduction, the absolute star of the show is the schwa sound. That symbol. One source actually called it the most important sound in the English language.
Okay, the schwa. Sounds a bit technical. How can teachers explain that easily without getting bogged down in phonetics?
Think of it as the sound of relaxation. It's the ultimate lazy vowel sound, just a neutral, unstressed grunt, almost. It's the sound most vowels turn into when they're in those unstressed function words, like the word for. In a sentence, it often just becomes fur. The O sound kind of disappears.
Ah, the lazy sound. I like that. Makes it less intimidating. So how do we show students the blending that happens with schwa in real speech?
You show the contrast. First, model it slowly, word by word. What is your name? Clear vowels. Then model it naturally, blended. What's your name? Point out how is and your shrink and blend, often using that sound. You practice that blending. That's where natural rhythm comes from.
Okay, let's take a classic tricky pair, can versus can't. They often sound almost the same to learners, causing real confusion. How does the stress reduction idea help there?
Ah, perfect example of using rhythm for meaning. For the positive can, we teach them to stress the auxiliary verb itself, I can swim. The can gets the emphasis because it confirms the ability.
Right, and for the negative, can't.
For the negative, the pattern flips. You usually stress the main verb, and the can't itself is often quick and reduced, maybe even just can't or counts depending on accent, but the stress falls later. I can't swim. So you're teaching them that the stress pattern itself signals positive versus negative. It's not just about hearing a tiny T sound. That's a huge shift for them, makes them so much easier to understand.
Wow, that's a really elegant way to use rhythm to solve a common problem. Okay, so let's bring this all together. For you, the teacher listening, let's quickly recap these three really practical techniques.
Okay, 3 key tools. First, for vocabulary, use those action verbs from higher up Bloom's taxonomy. Create, apply, analyze. Push students beyond just knowing the word to actually using it in context.
Yeah.
And remember that martial arts idea, don't jump too far ahead, match the task to their level.
Got it.
Yeah.
Second, for pronunciation, if students are mixing up sounds, stop repeating the whole word. Instead, isolate the problem sound first. Model the difference clearly. Maybe use those physical cues like feeling for vibration, and do those super quick 30-second drills every day.
Yep. And third, for fluency, it's all about rhythm. Exaggerate the stress on content words and teach the schwa sound for reducing function words. Focus on that blending in the stress patterns. That's where natural, easy to understand speech comes from.
And remember, your role isn't just about drilling grammar. It's really about building confidence, building their ability to communicate effectively. Like we said with the martial arts thing, if we skip the foundational steps, they might go through the motions but not truly understand, and that leads to frustration.
Exactly. So use these techniques deliberately. Be precise with sounds, be structured with vocabulary activities that demand action. Focus on clear, understandable communication above all else. You'll definitely see great results. Keep challenging your students. They really are ready for that next step, and now you've got some great tools to help them get there.